This podcast is brought to you by iPlayHockey.ca. iPlay is the leading hockey insurance provider to coaches, camp instructors, spring and summer hockey leagues, and tournaments across Canada. If you need insurance for hockey, iPlay has you covered. iPlay also provides hockey players and coaches with a wide range of free tools, drills, and skills in their drill vault to enhance on-ice performance, and they provide crucial off-ice knowledge as well. So if you need insurance for a hockey team, league, or camp, or if you just want to teach your kids some new drills, head on over to iPlayHockey.ca and check out their new website.
Our next guest on the Boys in the Booth podcast is a member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association, host of the Off the Post radio and Leafs Convo podcasts, as well as a Sabres reporter and site manager for the Hockey News. He is Michael Augello. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you, sir?
Pleasure, Harper. Well, I'm doing well. Now that the sun is out in Buffalo, it's a miracle. This thing in the sky gives off warmth.
We had a long winter and then just a whole bunch of rain. So nice to have some sunshine for sure.
Exactly. I hope it stays this way for at least a day.
Yes, absolutely. And, Michael, as I said off the top, you are a man who wears many hats, has many different duties. You cover both the Sabres and the Maple Leafs in different capacities. Before we get into some Sabres off-season talk, we're all wondering about the Maple Leafs and their coaching search right now. What's the latest there?
Well, it seems that the Leafs are taking a patient approach. It's not like something is going to be announced on Tuesday. It sounds as if they want to talk to David Carl, the three-time NCAA champ at the University of Denver, but we've heard that before over the last few years, and he seems hesitant to give up a cush job in college unless everything is right. I think he probably is the number one choice because I'm assuming Manny Malhotra is going to get the Vancouver Canucks job. If he doesn't get the job, I think he would be somebody that they would go and look at and possibly hire. I get the feeling, and this is my prejudice, I would rather them go for either a young coach or a coach from the American Hockey League that has paid his dues rather than a retread. I don't want to go down the Bruce Cassidy road or the Peter Laviolette road or Alain Vigneault or like all these slew of just guys who have been job after job. That's why if they can't get Carl and they can't get Malhotra, my sort of stealth candidate is still coaching. That's John Gruden, the head coach of the Toronto Marlies. He has a very good reputation in USA Hockey. He has sort of a resume similar to Dan Muse, the Pittsburgh coach, who's a nominee for the Jack Adams.
Yeah.
He's done a really good job with the Marlies with not a ton of talent, and he's gotten them to the Eastern Conference Final in the Calder Cup playoffs. So I think he's going to get interviewed. They interviewed Derek Lalonde, but I don't think he has a chance of getting the job. So I mean, we'll see. I don't think they're going to jump into something. I think they'll have a coach hired before the draft, but I just hope it's the right choice. I don't want the retread. I don't want Jay Woodcroft or Chris Knobloch. Chris Knobloch, the only reason I would want him is if they think they have a chance of getting Connor McDavid in a couple years. Knobloch is a junior coach and is coach in the NHL, but that's going a little far. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it would be sort of like what the Boston Bruins did with hiring Marco Sturm, first-time head coach, but had that experience in the American Hockey League, obviously well-known within the organization. Something like that, Michael, I agree with you, I think makes a lot of sense for the retooling Toronto Maple Leafs, if you will.
Yeah, and that's the key word is the retool. We have heard for over a month from a lot of insiders that, Austin Matthews was not sure what's going to happen. I mean, it's come out in the last week or so. Chris Johnston reported it. Elliot Friedman is reporting it. Matthews is going nowhere. He's, he has talked to Chaika and Sundin. They're probably going to talk further, but I never thought that there was a chance he was going to get traded. I thought this was all just clickbait. And that basically, a lot of people were stirring the pot. But in the end, I think he's going to stay. And, I don't blame Austin Matthews for saying, hey, what's the plan here? I'm 28 years old. I've been here for 10 years. I've got 2 years left in the contract. If you're going to retool and try to make the playoffs, I'm in. If you're going to rebuild, get me the hell out of here. So that's, I think that's a smart approach from him. And apparently he's heard the right things. And now it's up to Chaika and Sundin to make the right moves. The report last week was everybody's available. Of course, they're going to say everybody's available, because if they put it out there and then they get a return on a William Nylander or a Matthew Nyes that they can't turn down, then they'll make that deal. But the question is, will teams step up for those type of players? I don't think so. I don't think anybody's going to be willing to give the type of package they need to get back for Nylander or Nyes, who's 23 years old and a power forward. And I honestly don't think, and I might be proved wrong here, I honestly don't think that there is a chance that Morgan Riley waives his no move clause. I think he's going to stay in Toronto. Or if they think he's done, then they're going to have to buy him out. But I don't think he's going to accept a trade someplace else.
BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video. The new year is a blank space for you to write a new story. BetterHelp makes it more convenient to get you started. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy more comfortable and convenient. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Your next chapter starts today. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp online therapy at betterhelp.com/boysinthebooth in paid partnership with BetterHelp. Yeah, a lot of decisions on the horizon for Chaika and Sundin in that Toronto Maple Leafs organization. And just another quick one for you, Michael. McKenna or Stenberg, number one overall for the Maple Leafs. Do you have sort of a gauge on where the powers that be are at with this number one overall pick and who they're thinking about taking next month?
I think the odds are about 95-5 that it's McKenna. I don't, again, this is a lot of pot stirring and a lot of, there are a lot of people who are writing draft previews. And if the number one pick is in question, then it's going to get more attention. And this is not slagging on Stenberg. I think he's going to be a really good pro. But if you're looking for a almost perfect replacement for Mitch Marner in terms of a playmaking winger, the dynamic skill set that McKenna has, the speed, the passing ability, I think some of the reason that his stock has sort of fallen a little bit was because he went from the WHL to Penn State. And, that was the first, oh my God, he's abandoning Canada. No, he's doing what now you look at some of the prospects like Chase Reed, he's going NCAA. Caleb Malhotra, he's going NCAA. He was just one of the first. So, and he played great in the second half for Penn State. So I don't rule out the possibility that they would take Stenberg, but I think it's similar to Matthews and Laine back in 2016. We heard, oh my God, the Leafs they really love Laine. They might take Laine number one overall instead of Matthews. And in the end, I didn't buy into it. And in the end, it was Matthews. Matthews was the center. He was, I think, the better of the two players. And I think McKenna and Stenberg are different. Stenberg is more of a two-way guy, whereas McKenna is a dynamic offensive player. Some people are comparing him to Patrick Kane. I mean, that's very lofty. But I mean, I think he's a really skilled player, and I just can't see them passing him up.
No, fair enough. Very good insight there, Michael, from you, sir, on fascinating times, really, with the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about a number of things with the other team that you cover. That is for the Hockey News, and that's the Buffalo Sabres. First one for you, just what do you make of this season that just ended a short time ago for the Buffalo Sabres? It was certainly an exciting year in Western New York for that fan base. And just what do you have to say about the season that was for the Buffalo Sabres?
Well, you have to say it was an overwhelming success and an unexpected success because, I've covered the team day to day for the last 3 seasons. And, if you talked to me on December the 8th, I would have said, this is what I expected. They're finishing last place they're last place in the Eastern Conference. They're inconsistent. Josh Norris got hurt in the season opener, and everything was going in the wrong direction. And then December the 9th, from then on to the end of the regular season and into the playoffs, they were a completely different team. They were last place in the East on December the 8th, and they were the best record in the NHL from December the 9th to the end of the regular season. What I've been saying is somewhere in the middle is the real Buffalo Sabres, because I don't think they're as bad as that team that was last, and I don't think they were as good as that team that finished from December the 9th to the end, first overall in the NHL. They definitely showed improvement. They definitely have some quality players. Some of their young players have really stepped up and come to the forefront, but they're not a perfect team. And I think, some of their flaws and inconsistencies showed in the postseason against Boston and Montreal.
Lindy Ruff, the head coach of the Sabres, got a 2-year extension. What about the extension for pending UFA Alex Tuch? We know that he is a Western New York guy, grew up as a Sabres fan. He's from Syracuse, loves being there and being a Buffalo Sabre, but general manager Jarmo Kekalainen made it clear that we have to try to come to an agreement that is good for both sides and where we can still make the team better at the same time. So where are we at right now with 89?
Well, I'll be more definitive than I'm sure a lot of people would be. I think he's gone. I think he's been gone since September. They were negotiating. I think it was Pierre LeBrun reported in September that he was looking for over $10 million a year. Then Adrian Kempe signed a contract, and he signed at 10.6. And then what you heard was, well, he's looking for the Kempe deal. And I just don't think Buffalo is going to sign him for that much. First of all, they have only $12.9 million in cap space right now. They want to get Zach Benson signed long term.
Yeah.
I think Zach Benson takes priority over Alex Tuch. I don't think you want to sign Zach Benson to a bridge deal, because if you do, and he has 2 more great seasons, then the cost of poker just went up. Alex Tuch is 30 years old. He's been a key player for them. I don't think he's taking a hometown discount. I don't think he's going to take 8.5 or 9. I think, this is his last contract probably. He's 30 years old. This is probably, if he signs a long-term deal, it's going to be 6 or 7, or if the Sabres sign him and then trade him, it could be 8. So do you want to sign a 30-year-old to an 8-year deal? I mean, that's an albatross in a few years. So right now he's a good player. Right now he's a very effective player. But do you want to sign that long-term deal? And that's where I think they're at. I mean, Jarmo is looking at this situation and saying, okay, if I could get him at 8.5 or 9, I don't care about the 8 years. I'll just, I'll eat the term and go with it. But he's asking for more. And with the cap going up to $104 million, there is too much money in the market. And the free agent class is terrible. He's the best. I'm not saying he's a terrible player, but this is a very thin free agent class. If Charlie Coyle is getting $6 million, Alex Tuch is probably getting 10.5 to 11 million on the open market. So
right.
I don't think I mean, some things could change if he says, I really want to stay with this team and he's willing to take less. You can't rule that out, but I think he's gone.
This podcast is sponsored by SeatGeek, the absolute best ticket app out there. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals to tickets at your favorite sporting event. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know whether you're getting a good or a bad deal. Last time I got tickets to see the Devils play, I first saw red tickets. I waited it out, monitored the price in-app, and once I saw green, I pulled the trigger. SeatGeek makes it that easy. And here's the best part. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Click the link in our description to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code Boys in the Booth in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek.
You mentioned how Zach Benson, you believe, should be priority number one, and I agree with you. What does that contract look like, and is it pretty similar to the extension we saw for Josh Doan?
Well, Josh Doan signed his deal before the cap increase was announced. Now it's up to 104, and I think there's speculation he the year after could go up to 120.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, I think Benson's number will come in over Doan's. I think Benson probably on a 7 or 8 year deal, maybe he wants to shave a year or two off of that because he's 21, so he could turn free agent at 27 or 28. But I think it's going to be in the $8 million range. I think it's going to be, and that's more than Tage Thompson. But the cap has gone up. It's not percentage of cap. It's less than Thompson when he signed, but the number is going to be more. So yeah, he had a great playoff. He's improving during the regular season. He has played up and down the lineup. He's a pain in the ass to play against. Fans love him. They can't be cheap on this. And Yarmo said in the postseason press availability, he wants to get Zach Benson signed for as long a term as possible, which means they want to lock him in at a number before the cap goes up. So I think he's priority number one for this organization.
No, well said. That guy's a Buffalo Sabre through and through. And yes, very important for the Sabres organization to get him locked up as long as they can, because as Elliot Friedman says, the price never goes down for guys like that, right, Michael? So that's where we're at with Benson and the Sabres. Bo Byram, Kekalainen also mentioned him, how he said to him in his exit interview that he'd like to lock him up for a long time as well. He believes in building teams from the back end out. He really likes that top four, and I would have to agree with the Sabres GM that it is probably one of, if not the best top four in the National Hockey League, and we saw that all season long and into the postseason as well. Byram has one more year left at 6.25. He is extension eligible on July 1. What does that next deal look like for Byram in your estimation, Michael?
Well, first you have to factor in who his agent is, which is Darren Ferris. And Darren Ferris, as we know from Mitch Marner, as we know from other players, he likes to take them to market unless they love where they are and the team pays market value, which means what he would get as a free agent. So putting those two together, I think he's going to make more than Owen Power. I think he could make close to Rasmus Dahlin. He's probably going to be looking in the 9.5 range, which is like what Zach Werenski, what Adam Fox, those type of defensemen. Now, I don't think he's as good as Werenski. I don't think he's as good as Fox. But again, it's percentage of cap, and he's in the catbird seat right now. If he goes on if Yarmo goes on July 1 and calls Darren Ferris and says, well, I'd like to sign Byram long-term, and how about, 7-8 years at 8.5? He'll say, no, we'll wait on that. They can't wait on it because, he's going to be a lame duck in a sense. It's like, then you're talking about holding on to him until the end of the regular season, or until at least till the deadline, and then trading him. If you want to keep him, you're going to have to pay. And I think he will probably be, and I haven't looked at the free agent chart, but he's probably going to be the best defenseman on the market in July of 2027. So that being the case, if you want to get it done early, you're going to have to pay. And now the one advantage that the Sabres have is he's got that year this year at 6.25. The cap hit won't go up this year. So you could sign Benson to that long-term deal. And then when the cap goes up next year, then the cap increase on Byram's deal would go up. So, they would have the room, but that's presuming they don't sign Tuck. I mean, there's a lot of things here that filter down from signing or not signing Alex Tuck. And I think the priorities are Benson and Byram ahead of Tuck.
Yes, it certainly appears and sounds that way. Michael, looking at this roster and in particular up front, I mean, like you said, signing Tuck or not signing Tuck has major implications on this roster, but the Sabres are at a point now where they've got so many guys, they've got that depth, and you look at a healthy Yuri Kulik who's looking to come back and get into the lineup. Hellenus and Osland, I think it's fair to say, are NHL players now. They should not be playing one single more game in the American Hockey League at this point. So, you believe that Tuck is as good as gone. What does that lineup on opening night look to you for the Sabres in your estimation?
Well, internally, I think what'll happen is you'll see somebody like Jack Quinn move up into more of a prominent scoring role. He had 51 points this year. He had 20 goals. He's on the right side, just like Tuck. I mean, he could move up onto that top line or a second line. He's still not a fully formed defensive player, but offensively, had 31 assists. And he's got a great shot if you could just get it on net. In the playoffs, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, but he's got a great shot. Until late in the Montreal series, and he finally started to find his range.
Yes.
But the young players, I mean, here's the dilemma. Kulich, I think you have to be cautious because he's coming back from a severe blood clot issue. Yeah. They surgically repaired the issue. They didn't specify where the surgery was, but from what I remember, I think he was having headaches, so you had to when he was out of the lineup. So it might have been minor brain surgery or something like that, but we don't know for sure, and I'm not going to speculate. Although I just did. But when he was healthy, he's a very good goal scorer and somebody who played better at center than on the wing. Now, Osland can play the wing, can play center. Hellenus, I think, is better as a center, and he showed that in a few games during the playoffs. They almost have a glut in terms of young players. Peyton Krebs is an RFA. I think they want to bring him back because he's feisty. Yep. You always have to guard against the Josh Norris, the annual Josh Norris injury. He stayed healthy after December, but his record is checkered. So what they might do, I mean, they have, there are some people who think strike while the iron is hot. You've got a bevy of young players. You've got your first round pick. You've got Radim Murtka, who is a top prospect defenseman, a right shot defenseman who they drafted 9th overall last year. You have one of the best college player prospects in Brody Zemer from Minnesota.
Yes.
Who is going back to college this upcoming season. Do you go all in, so to speak, and make a bid for a big time player or a goaltender, or do you just bide your time? And if you look at Jarmo, his history has been to make big swings.
Yes.
So, what does that mean? Well, we tried to make a big swing at the deadline with Colton Parayko, and honestly, I think they would have made that deal would have been a bad deal. Now, we don't know specifically what it was, but the rumor was that it included Murtka, it included their first round pick, and it may have included Hellenus.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that was the case. Now, if you're giving up that for Robert Thomas, okay, that's a number one center, is one of the best playmakers in the NHL, but I don't think Robert Thomas was truly available. I think it was a fishing expedition by the Blues. Like they put half their roster out there to trade. But if there's a big fish out there and Jarmo wants it, he's got the ammunition to go out and get that big fish. Just a question of who and a question of how much. I don't think based on how he played in the playoffs, they want to trade Hellenus, but you could say, well, his value is never higher than it is right now. Right. So it depends on where they're going to go, where they think the area of necessary for improvement is. And we know they probably want to get somebody who is either retainable or is signed at long term, because in spite of their success this year, it is tough to get players to come to Buffalo.
We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and we are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all of the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users. And when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So, if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through our link in the description below, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use our link and support the boys. So, one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth.
Yes, for sure. And although if they can continue winning and being a contender in the playoffs, I mean, that should ease up a little bit on the resistance from certain players coming to Western New York for sure. Michael, we've talked about the cap space, 12.9 million that the Sabres have coming into this offseason. They are going to have to cut bait with some guys. And I wanted to throw out a few names at you just based on what Jarmo had to say or didn't say, who he talked about or who he didn't talk about in his end of season availability. But I wonder about someone like Ryan McLeod, who has some term left on his deal, struggled a bit in the playoffs. We saw him demoted to the fourth line at one point, and Helenius came in and centered that third line with Zucker and Quinn. I wonder about a guy like Jordan Greenway. Of course, he's got one more year left at $4 million. And Michael Kesselring, who is an RFA, needs a new deal this summer. But unfortunately, it was just a really tough year for Kesselring, who I think coming in expected to be in a prominent top four role. I think that was the plan coming in. But then you had Matthias Samuelsson break out the way he did. And, it's hard to put Kesselring against or ahead of any four of those guys. As Jarmo said, there's pretty tough competition there. Those are some names for you. We know the Sabres have to make room, as we've talked about. Where do you think they address that in terms of cutting bait a little bit here to create some more space?
Well, I mean, the advantage with McLeod is he's a center, and we know centers are very popular and very unavailable in terms of the market. So if they wanted to trade him, I think they could. I don't think they really want to. He's very fast. He had an off year, but he's a very good penalty killer, very good checker. So I would not put that at the top of their dump list. Jordan Greenway, he only played 40 games this season. He had mid-body sports hernia type of issues. I think he toughed it out in the playoffs, and he played a very physical fourth line role. I think they imagined more than him being a fourth liner. And if you're looking at $4 million for a fourth liner, that's not good for bang for the buck. So I think it would be tough to find a home to trade him because of the injury issues and the salary. But with the cap going up, it's not impossible. And I think the fact that he's got 1 year left in the contract is an advantage. They want to. I think they want to bring back Beck Malenstein, but Beck Malenstein is going to probably need a significant raise. He was making 1.35 last year. He's probably a $2.5 to $2.75 million player now, doubling his salary. and he's a fourth liner. So again, do you want to pay that for a fourth liner, or do you bring up somebody from Rochester like an Anton Wahlberg or someone like that, or go out and sign a veteran free agent? I mean, I theorize, and again, this is not based on any kind of reporting. This is just theory. Jarmo is very loyal to some of the players that he had in Columbus, and he brought Justin Danforth in on a contract. He was the advisor, but I'm assuming that he had a lot of sway when it was bringing in Justin Danforth.
Absolutely.
Boone Jenner is going to probably be a UFA coming out of Columbus. They signed Charlie Coyle to that 6-year deal, and it seems like as if they're penny pinching on Jenner. And if Jenner hits the market, not to say he's a 1-for-1 in terms of Alex Tuch in terms of scoring or anything like that, but I think he would provide some veteran leadership to go along with a guy like Jason Zucker. And I think that would help if they end up losing Tuch. As for Kesselring, I think Kesselring is probably going to get traded. He's 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. It was a nightmarish season for him. It wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
He got injured in training camp. He tried his best to come back, and it was a lingering, I think it was a high ankle sprain. But I believe he's 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. He's not going to, I think, want to be a bottom pairing defenseman and play 10, 12 minutes a night behind Power, Dahlin, Byram, and Samuelson. He's probably going to want to go someplace as a right shot defenseman where he can play big minutes, which they thought, they got him to be the number 2, the right shot defenseman to partner with Owen Power, and he got hurt.
That's right.
And they had used Connor Timmins for a while, and then they essentially went with the 4 lefties on the top 2 pairs, and that worked out great for them. Samuelson had a year for the ages. It was, he had more goals this year than he had in his entire career, and he stayed healthy.
Yeah.
But I just don't think, I think the more likely scenario on the blue line is that they trade Kesselring and they re-sign Logan Stanley to a 1 or 2 year deal, depending on how much he wants. They want that toughness on the blue line, and him and Timmins as a bottom pairing, along with Zach Metza as a 7th defenseman. That probably works for them, but it all depends on the price. If Stanley wants long-term and bigger money, then I think they'll go out and find a veteran free agent somewhere, because some of the defensemen in Rochester, like Ryan Johnson or Komarov, they're just not ready yet. So
yeah.
Oh,
fascinating stuff. And final one for you, Michael. And again, thank you for this. You've been extremely generous with your time today. The goaltending sounds like they're going to go with 3 goaltenders again next season, especially because every NHL team will need an emergency goalie as part of their roster. And so based on what Jarmo Kekalainen had to say in his end of season availability, the 3 goaltenders and Alex Lyon, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and Colton Ellis worked very well together, and certainly that showed up on the stat sheet. But given how the season finished and, just the uncertainty at times, and Lyon and Luukkonen both had their struggles in that Montreal series, what do you make of the goaltending situation in Buffalo? Do they come back with all 3 again next season? Is there a change coming there? Luukkonen's been there a long time. He's 27 now. What do you make of the goaltending situation in Buffalo?
It's really convoluted, and I think that's the best way we can describe it, because starting with the guy who wasn't mentioned, Devin Levi has been down in Rochester and has played 120 games. I just wrote today on the Hockey News about Devin Levi and how I think Devin Levi has played his last game in the Sabres organization. Now, the advantage for them is that all 4 of these goaltenders are under contract. Levi, Lyon, Ellis all have 1 year left in their deals. Luukkonen is signed for multiple years. It worked. It did work this year. Even Jarmo was saying it was almost perfect, where Lyon got hurt and Luukkonen was coming back. And if both of them were hurt or one was just coming back, they would play Ellis. And Ellis played, I think, 15 or 16 games.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that I think as soon as they claimed Colton Ellis, I think everybody knew Devin Levi was gone, because they claimed Colton Ellis to be the third goalie in Buffalo for the specific purpose of not having to have Devin Levi come up and play games, because after a certain amount of games, I do not think he was waiver exempt. And they wanted him to play down in Rochester and not have to call him up. So they didn't, and he played 52 games in Rochester. And if you look at his stats have gone down each year. He had a save percentage in the 920s, then it was 910s, and then it was 905 this year. So he's gotten worse, and not that I think he's gotten worse as a goalie. I just think he thinks he doesn't belong in the American Hockey League. So
right.
I would suspect that Devin Levi is going to be playing someplace else next year. As for the three goalies, Jarmo, and he knows the rules better than I, but with the new e-bug rules, I mean, Colton Ellis can't be the e-bug. Colton Ellis, so and he was basically saying, well, we have three goaltenders, so we wouldn't need the e-bug. Well, yeah, but I think, you're just carrying three goalies. The problem here is that nobody next year, Ellis or Levi, obviously Lucan or Lyon, are waiver exempt. They can't go down to Rochester. So if you keep all four of them, you're going to lose one or two of them. Yes. I remember a few years ago, the Maple Leafs waived Curtis McElhinney and Calvin Pickard on the same day, thinking one of them would get down to the AHL, and neither one did. No. So the way goaltending is right now in this league, and you're going to see a market for, Anthony Stolarz is going to get traded probably, even though he's got 4 years on a contract, because there are no goaltenders out there. So will somebody, Sebastian Cossa, who's played only a few games in the NHL, is going to be a hot commodity on the trade market. So will Devin Levi.
That's right.
I look at the Sabres goaltending situation and I said, regular season, it worked out fine. Playoffs, it did not. And that's being overly simplistic, but Luukkonen gave up that bloop goal in game 2 against Boston, and that was a killer. That was an absolute killer in terms of momentum. And they went to Lyon, and Lyon got them through the Boston series, and then Lyon, sort of dropped the ball against Montreal. And then Luukkonen came in, and he saved their bacon in game 6. After Lyon gave up 3 goals on 3 shots. They gave him a 4th shot, but I don't think he stopped one. And then I think Luukkonen was not strong late in the game against Montreal. I think he kept them in the game at 2-0 in game 7. He made a couple saves. I think Texier in a breakaway, he made a great stop. But a lot of people think that he was responsible for the goal for Newhook. I thought it was a knuckleball. It was partially screened.
Tough one for sure.
That's a tough one. But I look at their situation here, and they could very easily stand pat. But if you're talking about an area where Jarmo might take that big swing, it might be a net. Now, I'll say this. My buddy Jeff Merrick floated the Connor Hellebuck stuff.
Yes.
I think that's a bridge too far. Because Hellebuck's got a lot of term left. He's 33 years old. There's no guarantee he wants out of Winnipeg. And if he does he want to go to Buffalo? We have a better chance of palm trees than Winnipeg. But not really. But I look at it and I'm like, what you would have to give up for a almost certain Hall of Famer, Vezina, Hart Trophy winning goaltender. You're talking giving up like either 2 or 3 great young players or or somebody like Owen Power, which I think the Sabres are not going to want to do. Where if they're going for a goaltender, the guy I think would be the perfect target would be Jordan Binnington, because Binnington's got a year left in his contract. They've been talking trade with St. Louis, although there's been a change in GM from Doug Armstrong to Alex Steen.
Yes.
But talking trade with St. Louis frequently. And I think Jarmo was part of the Blues organization before he became GM in Columbus. So
yes, he was.
Yeah, he's got some ties there. So I think the fact that Binnington's entering the final year of his contract, that St. Louis is rebuilding, that this is a goaltender who steps up at the big times in the Olympics, in the Four Nations, during the Stanley Cup playoffs. He did it last year against Winnipeg in that first round. They shouldn't have been in that series, and they went to Game 7 in overtime. That smacks to me as the type of goaltender that the Sabres would like to get. Now, the price would be significantly less than Hellebuck. But if they don't go for either one, then I don't know then they probably just stand pat. I mean, I don't think Igor Shesterkin or, Ilya Sorokin are out there. I don't think they want to sign a 38-year-old Sergei Bobrovsky, so I think the options are limited in terms of an upgrade, but Binnington wouldn't be a ridiculous price and might be the direction that they go.
You mentioned Jeff Merrick there floating out the Hellebuck idea, and certainly an interesting one. And also can recall another idea that he had, which was Luukkonen, maybe a target for the Oilers, because we know that they're looking for a goaltender as well. So maybe the Sabres can get off of Luukkonen's contract. Not that it's egregious by any means, and but maybe just for the sake of making a change. Luukkonen has been there for some time. He is 27 now. He is kind of what he is at this point, I think. Right, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, he's a good goaltender. He's not a great goaltender. He's had some injury issues throughout his career. He had some at the beginning of training camp this past season. He played in the 30s, which, the previous couple years he's played in the 50s. I think he's a good tandem 1A, 1B, but I don't think he's a number one. I mean, if you're talking about my theorized Binnington deal, he could be a part of that because he's 27 and he's under contract. And they have Joel Hofer, so that'll be a good pairing for the future, two goaltenders in their 20s. And the possibility of him getting traded someplace else. I wouldn't wish being a goaltender in Edmonton on my worst enemy. Tristan. I have sympathy for Tristan Jarry because they have the knives out for him, but that team defensively is incompetent. And if a goaltender would need psychological treatment after playing behind that defense.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. That's for sure on the Edmonton front. But Michael, is there anything else you'd like to share on the Sabres file here today before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'll just say this. The draft is in Buffalo, so the likelihood of them trading their first round pick after trading their second and third, I believe, is almost nil. So if they do make a trade, it probably will be their 2027 first round pick. And the thing that I think, and don't get me wrong, everybody was overjoyed that they broke the playoff drought. It was 14 years, some of it laced with incompetence, some of it laced with bad luck. Everything went right. They got into the playoffs. They won a round. They got people excited. People have to recognize that improvement is not linear, that it's not like you made the second round, now you make the third round, now you win a Stanley Cup. You've got to keep improving. You got to address your areas of need. And even if you do that, there's no guarantee that this team is going to even make the playoffs next year in a really tough Atlantic division where Florida is going to be back. Toronto is going to be back. Montreal is improving. Detroit, I think, has reached a crossroads where they need to crap or get off the pot. Ottawa, Boston. I mean, this is the toughest division in hockey.
Yes, absolutely.
And Buffalo can't take it for granted. And I didn't even mention Tampa, who, missed winning the division by a point or two. I mean, they're not going to stand pat, so they're going to try to improve, even though they have cap limitations. So, you've got 8 teams in this division, and all of them are either good or really good or great. So Buffalo is going to have to improve not only to finish in the top 3, but to finish in the top 8 in the Eastern Conference.
And what's your level of confidence in them being able to do that? And because, as you just talked about, it is going to get harder now. And that was the exact message that Jarmo gave to the players in their exit interviews, that, we took a great step this year, but it is going to get harder now. What's your level of confidence in the Sabres being able to be a top 3 team in the Atlantic again next season?
I'm sort of mid on this, to use the youth terminology, because like a lot of things went right. Tage Thompson stayed healthy and scored 40 goals. Josh Norris stayed healthy after December and was a very good player for them. Jack Quinn scored 51 points. Benson got better. Doan was a revelation. Made that deal with Utah at least acceptable, because the Kesselring part of it was not good, but the Doan part of it was great.
Yeah.
So they got good performances out of their fourth line, out of their role players like Peyton Krebs, who moved up and down the lineup. And on defense, Dahlin, through personal tragedy, had his best year of his career. Power was steady and really good in the playoffs. Byram was solid, and Samuelson had the best year of his career. All these things happened in 1 year, like everything lined up. Can you depend on that to happen next year? I'm a skeptic. I mean, I always say, show me. There's going to be improvement in some players, and some players will regress. And there are going to be some players who were on this roster last year and will not be on this roster next year. So I'm like sort of middle of the road. I mean, do I think they'll make the playoffs? I think they'll be in a battle. I think they'll be in a battle for second or third place, or the 2 wild cards. But there's no, I mean, look at how tight it was this year. It was 1 or 2 points between first place in the division and the second wild card. So it's like, or the first or second wild card. So,
right.
They have one injury and it could derail them. So, yeah, I'm not Karnak the Magnificent with my turban and say, or Nostradamus looking into a pool of water and know what's going to happen. But they have talent, and they very well could make the playoffs again.
Excellent stuff, Michael. Really appreciate your time today. You've been incredibly generous with your time. You can follow him on Instagram and X at Mike in Buffalo. Check out his Sabres coverage as well at thehockeynews.com and so much more. Michael Augello joining us here on the Boys in the Booth podcast. Michael, again, thank you so much. Enjoy the remainder of the Stanley Cup playoffs, sir, and enjoy your summer as well. All the best.
Thanks, Harper. Appreciate it.